Okay, now we're live. And I've lost the... Oh man, where did the notes go?
They're in the chat.
Oh, there they are. Okay. I thought I had it open on a tab, but I have two profiles open, so I keep switching between profiles. Okay, that's not good. So we're taking note. Oh, I see what we did here. Sorry, now we're trying to get organized. Okay. So, Jennifer, will you revisit the conversation you had earlier today? That was probably pretty useful.
So, the data security. So I was talking with someone at our district office about, her question was, is a document in like Microsoft Word more secure document than a Google document? And her question was because she needed to share information with a principal or get information with a principal, and it's going to have teacher names on it and scores, and it's data that won't be shared outside at all. They just need the score, but because of what they're doing with the evaluations, they have to have a teacher name at one point or another. Anyway, and I was telling her that I felt like the Google document is going to be just as secure in that respect than a Word document, because the Word document, it's still a digital document, and if somebody, neither of the two people who are going to have access to it want to share it anywhere else, but if somebody did, it doesn't matter if it's a Google document or a Word document. So it wasn't about data mining or anything like that. It was simply the ability to view the document. So could somebody like accidentally stumble across it if it was a Google document? And I told her that just couldn't happen.
Yeah. Okay, so one of the concerns when we're talking about student data is just the ability for someone outside of the shared or outside of the collaborators to view it. And then you mentioned data mining. That's another one. At least I hear it a lot.
Yeah, I do as well.
And identity theft, but less so identity theft than the simple data mining with kids, with students K-12. It's more the data mining concern.
Which is so interesting, because I when I thought about FERPA as a classroom teacher and then eventually as a specialist, I just kind of went, oh, that's so silly. What a ridiculous Homeland Security law. It's just so over the top. And then when my daughter graduated from high school, there were two kids her same age who had their identity stolen, and they didn't even know it until they went to college. And so it is kind of one of those, like, really, if you're going to steal an identity, like, I'm checking my credit score every 6 months. So I know if something's gone wrong, but they don't know. Because, they're not applying for credit or, doing they don't know their own social security number in some cases. And so I think it was interesting that then I went, oh, the light bulb sort of went on, and it makes sense that we wouldn't want that personal information about those kids to get out. It seems far more concerning to me than just having them mine for data so that they can target advertising,
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's almost like our fears are sort of unwarranted or misplaced, really.
I feel like it's more misplaced, and I feel like it's misplaced because we don't have enough information, and our community doesn't have enough information about what exactly it is. And it's boring. FERPA and COPPA, it's so boring. So who wants to, as an adult, you say, okay, I know what it's about, let's not talk about it anymore. And meanwhile, and by the way, I don't want you signing my child up for a blog.
Right.
But they don't want to hear any more about it necessarily because they feel like maybe they know enough. And it's just boring. And, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, and teachers don't know enough about it to inform the parents and the community about it either. We had a situation going to the student thing where some of our schools are using Hapara, and so they have that remote control interact feature where the teacher can see what the kid's looking at or whatever. And so we have it set up so it only works within your network. It won't work when the kid's at home. And then you have to put a time limiter on it. So from 9 to 5 is when it's active. And so we had a parent who has kids at an K-8 school and then also at a different middle school, or a K-5 school and a middle school, and his kid accessed his Google Apps account at home on their desktop computer, and then it instantly started downloading that Interact extension for Chrome. And so he looked at that and was all, why are you trying to spy on my kids? And so we had to nip that in the bud.
Well, and it's so interesting because that's come up too as we move closer and closer to one-to-one. In Beaverton, there's been a lot of, oh, you're just trying to spy on our kids. What kind of, are you sure the camera's not on? In fact, Corvallis stopped their one-to-one because of a very vocal parent who wrote a 50-page document. And he was quite knowledgeable about networks and about computing, but his main argument was really about how do you know that someone isn't going to intercept something between the iPad at home and the iPad, whenever the kid's transmitting any information, that someone's not going to be able to tap in and look at that camera or use that camera to look at the kid which is never in a million years probably going to happen. It's not that it's not possible, but that was the argument, and they couldn't prove that wasn't going to happen. And so they just, they slowed everything down, and, it's just stopped all progress on that. It was so, really? This is what we're
So the camera, actually, if you close the iPad in a case, that's crazy.
Well, and who is trying to tap into kids' cameras and look at them in their bedrooms? That's absurd. They're trying to meet kids in random places. They're trying to do a lot of things. I'm not saying security is not an issue, but really?
Well, I mean, I've seen not tons, I'm exaggerating, a good handful of people just in the district, teachers, administrators, that put a piece of tape over the camera on the laptop.
I've seen that too.
I was actually just doing a hangout with some principals, and the one principal, when she came into the hangout, it was just black, and she couldn't figure out what was wrong, and Susan was in the room, and Susan's like, do you have a piece of tape over your camera? She knew exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
But I'm wondering, though, I mean, people have screwed this up for us in the past, right? There was that school district in Pennsylvania that really was was using the camera, and it was for security, but they were turning it on. I mean, I don't know. It may have been, I think I only got the media reports. They were probably embellished in lots of different ways.
Well, and I think it's not just school districts that have messed it up for everybody. It's companies. Like my sister-in-law works for an insurance company, and she's an adjuster, works out of her house. But her computer and everything is part of the company. I mean, that's the company. And they have officially sent out a memorandum that they will be monitoring the computers and they will be watching, and that they reserve the right to turn the camera on and watch. Basically, I'm sure it was more formal language and nicer, but so she's like, because we were joking about my camera, and I said, no, it's not on, you don't see the green light on. She's like, well, how do you know that?
How do you know?
I'm like, oh my gosh, because my school district doesn't have as much money as your insurance company to pay somebody to do that to me.
Well, and even if it was on, who can we pay to actually watch these people? That is not happening.
Yeah, I mean,
at least there's no orchestrated approach to that. But
the same people we're going to pay to score the Common Core tests.
Oh wait, I know it is. I mean, it's fascinating stuff. But there's no orchestrated approach to doing it. For school districts, I mean, for us anyway. But it's pretty interesting what people think is actually occurring.
Yeah.
And the fear is certainly, to a certain extent, because it's happened before, somebody messed it up for the rest of us, and it begs integrity, right? If somebody's watching you, I just read, Melissa, I think you read it, The Circle. It was on my reading list forever. And
oh my gosh, it's so good.
there's a lot of that kind of like, as long as somebody's watching you, then, you have to have integrity. And but she was like losing weight. She was doing all this great stuff, this philanthropic stuff, because she had to wear a camera around her neck. And everybody was watching. So they weren't just watching what she was doing. They were watching everyone around her. So it was.
Is that Dave Eggers? I was just Googling it.
Yeah.
Okay, I might have to read that.
It's kind of scary.
Oh.
I mean, it's not scary, but you can see what the world is.
But it's like you're like that seems like it could really happen.
Yeah. Like it's not far. Some of the things they mention, and you're like, oh, we're there. We do that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, so the other concerns, I was trying to list some other concerns. We have ability to view and share outside of those who have permission, data mining, identity theft, and then I mentioned the laws here. What are the other concerns that you hear about security?
What am I doing wrong?
Well, I think I know a bunch of teachers that are really getting into blogging, and I know blogging's been around for a super long time, but with elementary students, I've been trying to get teachers to open up the blog so that they're real blogs, so that they can talk to people outside of the classroom and outside of the school building and outside of the district. So taking it incrementally, and then the fear of strangers. It's that stranger danger kind of fear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of that same thing as well, and just if I open it up, and how safe is it going to be, and what control do I have? So again, it all kind of lands on that safety issue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just had the same thing happen yesterday at a staff meeting that I was at, and the teacher started blogging, I think last year, a couple years ago, and then she was just Googling herself, and she ended up finding her profile, but then she also ended up seeing all these other photos of her kids, her students, that she had put on the blog, but they were coming up in a Google search for her, and so that totally freaked her out. And she wanted to know, how do I not, because I don't want to post the pictures of kids on, it's the stranger danger thing, totally.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Even if there's no, I mean, I've had legitimate, like kids in my class who really can't have their pictures published.
Right.
For very legitimate reasons. But it's like, I mean, it's been one or two over a 15-year span.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's pretty rare. But the fear, and I don't know if this is because we're all 80s kids, but I mean, I was taught that stranger danger, right? It was really a very unrealistic fear, because it was going to be the guy sitting at your kitchen table that was going to abuse versus the person on the street, right? Like, it's some ridiculous, like 92% or something is of the time it's someone that you know versus somebody that you randomly meet.
Well, Corinne, as you were talking about that, I can't help but think about that's just new and better information that you've gotten from when you were a kid and what was being explained and how to keep yourself safe and so forth. And then as an adult, having more information and the statistics that go with the reality of that safety. And so that's sort of where I keep coming back to as I'm listening to you guys talking about all these different aspects of online safety, is it all kind of stems from misinformation or not enough information that's going out. And so part of me says, how do we get that information out in such a way that is helpful and useful? And frankly, it feels like such a much, much bigger situation and issue than even the four of us can manage. We're only going to be dealing with our smaller circles. It feels like it should be, again, a much bigger conversation.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
I did the student privacy presentation at the Future Ready Summit in Vancouver just recently. So they're doing these summits all over the U.S. And we talked about exactly that, Cindy, where and mostly it was IT folks in the room. There were a few educators, but mostly IT people who were saying, we can't keep up with this. There's no way that we can inform the public and really get some community buy-in about all of this at the same time that we really are protecting student data, at the same time that we're going through these materials adoptions where curriculum and instruction is just sort of blanket saying, yeah, we'll give you the student data so the kids can log in, so they can, be tracked appropriately and get that personalized education the way textbook companies define it, which is a different conversation. But it was exactly that we talked a lot about a group in the Northwest and saying, how do we inform the public in an appropriate way, and then also have standards for actually making sure that these products are secure. So it was really both sides of it. So it is a much broader. We talked about crowdsourcing. We talked about using our ESDs. We talked about lots of different things that would start to make sense. But I mean, there are 14 bills. I don't know what we're up to. I haven't been tracking the bills in the Senate and House very well, but there were 14 student security bills during this session, just in Oregon.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It is amazing. So, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I agree with what both of you are saying, and then it's interesting to me that you talk about the Future Ready Summits and how it was mostly IT people. I mean, was it split up that way?
No, these were self-selected. So we ran parallel with other sessions.
I see.
Mostly what I noticed the teams were IT people, superintendents, and assistant superintendents, and then usually some mix of instructional tech people. Right. And so it was meant so that you would split up and go to the 3 strands and then come back together.
Well, and I still have a problem or struggle with the fact that, to me, it all really goes back to sharing, and as a classroom teacher, sharing what you are doing and letting your parents and your community know that this is what learning looks like, and because it looks like this now, it means this.
Yeah.
And for us in our district, I mean, I still get people asking me in the IT department, can you do this digital citizenship or whatever you want to call it presentation to all these parents? And I'm like, no, I cannot do that.
Yeah.
And not that, I mean, first of all, I would do it if I thought I really had no choice. But it needs to come from an instructional standpoint, I think, not from people in the IT department.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and we've done kind of a stock, almost like a slide. Well, not almost. It is a slide deck, just with the main talking points and a Beaverton logo on there. But it's really skeletal because that's our same message is.
Right.
We can do this, but it looks different at this school than at this school. So you've got to customize it to address the needs in your particular parent population. And then the real job is really, as teachers, we have these conversations, not just, I'm going to stand up and do the slide deck for you once a year, but that it is inherent in what we're doing because this is what learning looks like. And so the conversations are there. I mean, as a parent, that would make me feel far better than hearing that, we've taught digital citizenship and we've checked this box and now it's done.
Right. And that we had, we're using Bright Bites in our district, and one of the big ahas that we got back from that was that most teachers feel that they don't teach digital citizenship in their classroom. It was a really high percentage. And I really disagree. I think that a lot of them are teaching digital citizenship more than they know. They just don't know what it is. Like when they talk about searching online and how to do safe searching, that's digital citizenship. When they talk about citing their sources, that's a part of digital citizenship. When they talk to their students and say, don't put your last name somewhere, that's digital citizenship. So letting them know that they are teaching it, but that they need to communicate that specifically with their parents and with their students, that that's part of being a good digital citizen.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's what I found. So I teamed with a teacher librarian from Washington, and we did something at NCC around finding good digital citizenship resources. And I was fascinated by people's response. It was, I have to teach this as a whole unit. Corinne, you kind of alluded to this. And when I teach this whole thing, it's going to be 6 weeks long, and it's going to be hours and hours and hours, versus what you've just described, Jennifer, which is little snippets and relating it directly to the task at hand. And it was truly an aha moment for them as Art and I were kind of talking through. Yes, you can use all of these things, but you don't have to integrate it you have to integrate it, obviously, but it doesn't have to be a standalone.
Yeah, and that's more effective if it's not a standalone, or if it's a standalone brief, and then you come back to it, and you continue to come back to it every time students are on a device that it's talked about, and just a reminder, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And I also think about that elementary model where, you practice how you walk down the hall. You don't do it one time, right? You do it repeatedly. And it's this is why we're doing this, and this is what it looks like, and this is how it impacts other people, which is, again, if you think about digital citizenship, and
absolutely.
It covers all of those.
More of a reminder than others.
Absolutely, and some adults need more of a reminder than others.
Yeah, exactly. So, so if we were to name some ways, going back to what Cindy was saying earlier about how we get this information out to people, we talked about a couple where, in buildings you kind of develop some standards around that instead of asking IT or even curriculum and instruction from a district perspective. So it almost seems like in buildings they need to make a commitment to do this. And it needs to be identified, right, Jennifer, so that they know when they're doing it.
Right. And to call it out when they're doing it, so that so everybody knows what it is.
So a lot of, and this was mentioned a lot in the session that at Future Ready, was be transparent about what you're teaching and how you're teaching it, so people know, community, other teachers, administrators, all of that.
Well, I think one of the tricky things is when teachers are signing up for all the different free online accounts.
Yeah.
And then they sign up their students, whether they're 13 or older or not, that student data confidentiality has to be addressed. And that a lot of teachers don't think through that. They just see the wonderful educational possibilities, but they don't necessarily stop and think about the student privacy piece.
So, whoops, sorry, Melissa. This is shared document at its best. We're typing over each other. So inform teachers about student privacy in terms of service, because I think that happens a lot. And then I think holding teachers accountable in lots of different ways, and I don't know how we would do this from the central office, but I think it would probably be through our administration, is informing them very, very well, and then really having them hold each other accountable sort of as a community, and having administration say, did you really read the terms of service there? And maybe put your kids on that and have them pick it apart or something, so that it's a learning experience for them, and that they're really, because I have lots of teachers, we just don't have time, right? There's not time to set aside to doing that in the same way that we used to run down and copy a textbook, because I didn't have enough copies, so I need you to go down and copy pages 58 and 59, which isn't okay either. But it just wasn't, I didn't have time to run to other classrooms to find it. So really having them hold each other accountable for that. So information for teachers. I think Do any of your districts do like an orchestrated approach to citizenship where they say, 4 times a year, this is going to be like Citizenship Day, and we're going to focus on online learning, and today you're going to talk about password security, and here are a set of lesson plans by grade band. And
we did that this year. We just started that this year. We have an instructional technology committee at the district level, and so we have identified the Common Sense Media as a curriculum to use, and we have a Digital Citizenship Month. And so this year it was January, February. People could choose. Buildings chose if they wanted to do January or February, and they had they could do it however they wanted, but some really got into it and dove into that curriculum from Common Sense, and then others just touched on it a little bit. But what we're hoping to do is next year actually join in with the National Digital Citizenship Month. I think it's October. And join in with that, and that just to highlight it, and also say this is our month. However, all year long, you're doing it. Highlighted in that month.
I love that idea, Jennifer, and I just wonder if even the 4 school districts right here, if we couldn't somehow say, hey, we are banding together and this is what we're choosing to do for the month of October. Here's shared resources. I think that there could be really some power in that collaborative approach, in that, in a sense, accountability, right? Because, well, I can't because Beaverton is, and so, well, somebody's going to know, that sort of thing, at least from a central office standpoint, if that wouldn't be a nice approach.
Yeah,
I think that's a great idea.
It really is. Well, and the ability then to crowdsource the different ways that you teach those skills to kids.
Right.
Because a lot of it, and what does it look like at kinder versus what does it look like at 6th grade, and then when they hit proficiency at 8th grade, and then what are you expecting in high school?
Right.
I think that the understanding sort of broadly about that would be really useful. Because there are nets that directly point to citizenship specifically, and then and there are some about data security, and talking to kids about not sharing passwords is definitely something that is, it links in with that security piece, but it's a huge citizenship piece too. I like that. Jennifer, you said something about it earlier, that you gave some examples of what citizenship is, and it really is broad. It's copyright, it's security, it's information, it's fluency and literacy and all of that. So I think that's perfect. We can really start to unify on that.
I should put a link to, we have a link, a Google folder, I think it's open, and I'll try and find it and put a link to it. It's on our Redefining Learning at ttsdschools.org.
Cool.
Excellent.
Yes.
So I'll just grab that link.
Perfect. And if somebody could share the notes with me, that would be awesome.
They should be in the chat.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it.
Oh, you're not? Okay. I wonder if it's because you weren't here when we... That's weird.
Oh, that's weird.
That is weird.
So,
sorry.
No worries.
That it was there for everyone.
Perfect. Thank you.
Put it in again.
Thank you. I see it. Yeah, we're good.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Okay, so what are some other approaches? Oh my gosh, is it really 9:44? Okay, we've been at this for a long time. I didn't realize that. Oh no, we were on just at 9, right? For some reason, I thought we did this at 8. How did that go so fast? So, are there any other approaches besides the ones listed here? Should there be district policy, like strict district policy about this?
About data security as a whole, or digital citizenship?
Yeah.
I think about data security is what I'm thinking now.
Yeah, I feel like there has to be because of state law and federal law.
Well, that's what I mean. Can we just point to state and federal law, or does this have to be built in I mean, that's kind of, we just redid our social media policy, our board. We didn't redo the board policy, but we did the administrative regulations around it. And mostly we just pointed back to, this is what COPPA says. And so this is the form you're going to use because somehow we have to know that this law is being, followed. But we don't have other specific data security policy. It all just points back to those laws.
So, Corinne, are you suggesting that there be more of a granular approach where this is how we can interpret this law? Is that what you're saying, or is it more than?
No, I'm asking about, like, some districts have gone a step further and done actually, like, put into board policy their own language around this.
Got it.
So FERPA, for instance, is directory information. As a district, you can define what directory information is and isn't. I'm not suggesting anything. I would never do that. Okay, I felt like there was one more thing on this list. Digital citizenship. Oh, thanks for the resources, Jennifer.
Yeah.
Teachers, I felt like there was a layer here missing. Oh, community, citizenship, teaching, informing teachers. I think continually informing informing the public.
It's that transparency piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can't just be once. I think it needs to be pretty constant.
Yeah.
And it needs to be at a building level too. Like, I'll go in and talk to kinder parents this spring at all the roundups about signing Google Apps forms.
Lucky you.
I know, that should be really fun. There's a lot of it is what I hear from kinder parents. It's mostly, I just don't want my kid to have a Gmail account.
Yeah.
Well, they're going to have one. But whether or not, they use it, it's probably not age appropriate to really use it in kindergarten. But to start to talk about how you form a good email message, how you ask a good question, who you're sharing information with, is probably pretty important when they're concrete thinkers. So having access is important. So data security and citizenship. Teachers, staff. Shoot, it's gone. There was one more, because you mentioned teacher or security in teacher data, Jennifer, earlier.
Yeah.
And it feels like sometimes we have to be honest with people about how much of their information is getting out. Because the sharing part that we talked about earlier is another thing that teachers, it's a total breakdown in the culture, I think, of teaching and learning. Is I don't want to share anything because, like, my kids' pictures may come up years later on a blog, but there's some fear around it. So it's almost like starting to change a culture around sharing and be aware of what you're sharing and where it's going and how it's tagged, so that you control that versus you're just throwing it out into cyberspace and then wondering what's going to happen.
So you're talking about intentionality, Corinne, right?
Absolutely.
Versus just on a whim.
Right. Well, and because how many of you have been in workshops, whether they're on social media or something else, where people don't want to they don't want to make their stuff public, or they don't want to sign up for an account on social media because they just they don't want to be in that space.
Yeah.
But it's a farce to think that you're not in that space already. Somebody's tagged you somewhere. Put your name on something, not tagged you, but in the social media sense. But it's important to know where you are and what you're doing and online. So I think it's silly to say, oh, I don't want an account because I just don't want to be there. You're already there.
Yeah, I have this vision popping in my head of, the ostrich and the head in the sand.
Yeah.
Right? So the reality is, yes.
if I don't see it, then it's not there, right? If I don't initiate it, then it's not really out there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think informing people and starting to dispel as much fear and uncertainty and doubt as possible in all those audiences. It's huge. Oh, I know what it was. So it's almost like you need, particularly on the student data side, curriculum and IT need to be talking all the time about how systems mesh together. I find it's much safer if teaching and learning has kind of decided on some materials that are really truly what they want for kids. They teach concepts the way we want to teach them. But then when they have some top choices, they come to IT and say, all right, here's what we've got. What kind of technical questions should we be asking about, to these vendors to make sure that we use Active Directory. Does that actually, mesh with that system? Do they hash a password? Do they grab a password for someone else, for someone else? Do they use federated services? Like all of those things, if you adopt something and then come to IT, a lot of times they don't work together. And you have to Mickey Mouse it, which is way less secure than planning ahead.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right that conversation between IT and instructional services, I think, is a have to. It's not a nicety. It's a have to.
Yeah, absolutely. And it has to happen early in the process. Mm-hmm. It can't happen at the end. Well, it can, but it's messier. Right. And really, I think we're putting student data at risk when, we don't ask those questions until later. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So curriculum.
Well, I know we have a process in place right now that Susan Bernard set up. So whenever any teachers, anybody at any building wants to purchase something, when it goes through purchasing, they have to fill out a form, and so Susan always follows up to make sure that the company that they're working with has signed our data confidentiality agreement.
Cool.
And so that only works if it's a paid subscription.
Right.
So there's so many things out there that are not paid. So just getting the information out to teachers to make them stop for just a moment and think about what they're doing.
Totally. That's the hardest thing because it's so many people, right? Mm-hmm. Like you have to get the message out and then they have to actually listen to it, process it, and listen to it, and then follow through.
Yeah.
So that's, but I think what we often do with teachers, it seems punitive because we just say, don't do this.
Right.
Versus, holy cats, think about what you're doing with student data. Mm-hmm. Here are the implications of what that is. And so here are some guidelines to follow. It's not that you can't do it, but here's what you need to pay attention to. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the answer just should be no. Like it's a really compelling service, but maybe you push back and say, you're just not keeping it secure enough, so I have to use something different. So conversations between IT and curriculum. Did I capture, Jennifer, what you just said? Continually informing, be aware. Oh, inform student or teachers about student privacy.
Yeah.
In terms of service.
I like that picture.
I know.
And it doesn't need to be like a whole workshop or a presentation at a staff meeting, but it's just as long as it's in our conversations.
Yeah, when at the summit we were talking about how at the beginning of the year we make everybody take child abuse training, hazardous materials, and I don't know what else we take. I feel like I've been doing it for 20 years. It seems like if we just had a little something in there about just about data privacy in general, that it wouldn't have to be long, or there would not have to be any videos attached to it, except that we know that people like that kind of chunking. But
Isn't Salem doing that? Because we talked about this, but we talked about having some kind of digital citizenship module that people would do in addition to the child abuse and stuff. And I feel like Melissa Gardner, somebody said they were starting something like that.
Yeah, that's not something I am aware of, but I'm absolutely going to follow up on that, and I'll let you guys know what I think.
That'd be awesome. I think that would be something else that we could do as 4 districts. It's not like that information changes,
Not so much. Not so much.
It's got to be. And I wonder if Common Sense Media doesn't have they have that specific package for educators. It just seems like leveraging those materials would be.
They have. It's easy. It's chunked. It relates back to Common Core standards. It relates back to the ISTE standards.
Right. And it's searchable. It's got a lot of really good stuff with it. And so that was the other thing I thought of is what if we had a common resource that all 4 districts are pointing at? Again, that leads to greater accountability, but frankly, it is more thorough.
Totally. And it can evolve and change too.
Yeah.
Right.
We point to those resources too.
Yeah. I use Common Sense all the time. I don't want to recreate it if it's already there.
That's for sure.
And that it's high quality and easy to find. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right. We have 2 things that we can do as 4 districts.
Excellent.
Yay.
Actionable items. I like it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good to see all of you guys.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to get a chance to visit.
Yeah. What's the next topic? I think there was one on gamification, maybe?
Yeah, Cindy had those other ideas that are at the top. Gamification, coding, and one-to-one rollout strategies.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe that in April?
So, April 21st.
Yeah, let's do it.
April 21st. Okay.
Yeah. So which one are we doing? We're doing gamification.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that.
Okay.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah, I have some cool models to share with you guys on those.
Okay. And HIPAA, sorry, in the notes, I got to look it up.